The most disappointing smartphone I bought last year is definitely the Xperia 1 Mark VI, and in this video I will explain to you why that is the case. So let's get started. It is definitely not the design of the Xperia 1 Mark VI that is putting me off. As you can see here, it's looking very modern with its flat edges all over the place, with this very interesting camera bump that is like almost invisible. You can see the side rails that give you nice grip, the fingerprint scanner that is nice and fast, and the flat screen that we also have here on this device, which looks just stunning. This is a pretty good kind of device that I like. Headphone jack, USB Type-C, the SIM slot that you can take out without a SIM eject tool. A very overall nice design that I like to grip. Sadly, that fell already once, as you see there, and it broke the screen a little bit there because I didn't have a case, because I feel so comfortable wearing this without the case, and it's like thinner and feels more lightweight than any other flagship phone that I tried last year. The cameras is the thing where they fail the most, and this is quite interesting because Sony is known as a very maybe the top DSLM brand on the market, also one of the top leaders when it comes to the camera sensors inside of smartphones. But for some reason on the Xperia 1 Mark VI they don't put top-notch, their best flagship camera sensors inside. Let's take a look deeper what is really inside of those cameras here on the 1 Mark VI and what makes it so miserable and a failure for a flagship camera smartphone. The camera specifications are not like the top of the notch, top of the line. You can see it from the camera bump already. We have basically one good sensor, which is a little bit of an older sensor already that uses the Exmor TS, Exmor R, I don't know what technology they're using there, but this is the main camera sensor, 1/1.3 inch sized sensor, where the ultra flagships of this year or last year already featured a 1-inch type sensor that is better with noise reduction, that is better in low light and offers nicer bokeh. Some of them, even if they have 1/1.3 inch size sensors, offered a variable aperture. This one doesn't have it. And then we come to one of the most failures, which is the telezoom lens, and something that I hope they will definitely improve with the 1 Mark VII, because this is this year or last year, the end of last year, the one thing where every major smartphone camera manufacturer improved upon. This one here has a very unique optical zoom system, which is unique on the market for smartphones, which screams to be one of the best with 3.5 to 7.1x magnification. This is like 85 to 100 and something millimeter, which is very good optically zoomed. But the major failure and downside here is it's a tiny, really tiny and old sensor that they put in here, and this means even if you can zoom in optically so well with this tiny sensor, you will not get good photos. Only if you have very bright light, then it will not show you any noise, but otherwise even at ISO 200 it will show you noise. And then the other sensor is a good and trusty old 60mm wide angle lens. This one also deserves an update, deserves an upgrade to a nicer, more megapixel sensor here as well, because it is not as wide as it should be, and if you want to crop in, you lose a lot of details as well. On the other hand, it has good HDR for sure, but it's also something that is pretty old, and the predecessor already had it. So this is something where Sony struggles the most. And I don't even want to talk about the front-facing camera, because this one here, is also not updated since years, but Sony never cared about the front-facing camera. It's good enough for snapshots or some video conferencing, but I wouldn't take real selfies or videos with this. First we will take a look at the video performance of this one, and then we talk about a second downside of Sony, which is still, sadly, the software. One of the strongest points of the Xperia 1 Mark 6 is definitely the video performance, you would think, when you see this video here, because it is pretty good, to be honest. It is probably, yeah, the one least thing that I hate about the Xperia 1 Mark 6, or that I dislike, let's say it like this, because I don't really hate this phone. It's just like I dislike. The least thing that I dislike, because it is pretty good and I really like to use it. The video performance is top notch, at least on the main camera sensor if you use it. And maybe the ultra wide angle as well. Now, let's check out the ultra wide angle. Let's switch to the ultra wide angle where it makes sense. And you see another issue that we have with the software. You saw that? This little jump there from one to another. It's not really smooth. And we have 2025 now, even in 2024, camera manufacturers, from smartphone cameras at least, were implementing like smooth zooming in and zooming out effects. And this jump that you saw there, zooming out, by the way, what do you think about the ultra wide angle? It's also very apparent when you try to zoom in on stuff. So let's try to zoom in on stuff like we want to zoom in, I don't know. Maybe we go through this gate and zoom in on something. So let's do it. First of all, stabilization is pretty nice on this one, for sure. So even the ultra wide angle has nice stabilization there. But if you want to zoom in on something, let's go and zoom in to the other side of the gate there. Let's see what happens. So I press the 3.5x button. You can see how slowly and stuttery it is zooming in. And 7 point, which is like optical zoom. So slow. If I use the volume keys, it's a bit better, no? Is it? It's so stuttery and you can see the jump. Like it's twitching. The color is pretty much the same there, and I can even zoom in 20 times, but you can see how bad this looks optically already. And here the switch. Yeah. You can definitely see the switch, and it's like not smooth at all, and the buttons are not helping either, because it's like so slow. If I want to zoom from the ultra wide angle to 7.1, look how long it will take. I have like few sentences spoken until it is like done. So this is definitely something that I dislike on the Xperia. This whole zooming in and out experience is super sluggish, super slow, one of the slowest ever, and doesn't look like good at all for a flagship camera smartphone in 2025, but also in 2024 there were way better kind of smartphones, even though I like the color calibration because it's looking like it is like the same sensor, so they're doing a pretty nice job there. But the sluggish kind of zoom in and out, look at Vivo, look at the iPhone, look at Oppo, look at Xiaomi, look at all the other brands that are doing it, Samsung, all the other brands that are doing it way better than what the Xperia is doing here. The only thing that I think is nice, I can use the volume keys, and probably now I should be with the ultra wide angle here. So see a little bit more of the gate now from the ultra wide angle. So yes, the video performance is nice as long as you don't zoom in or out, which is still a struggle for the Xperia. After all this year, I still remember the old times where you had to stop recording to switch the lens because you could not switch it on the fly. So Sony figured it out at one point. But if I find the bird, like this one, the bird's there, and I want to quickly zoom in, how do I do it? Press the 7.1x and it's like taking forever and one bird is gone already. And then your zoom performance here, you can see, even with the optical zoom, that's, yeah. Oh, I pressed the 1x button. Yeah. Even the optical zoom that is like praised so much as, yeah, it's optical. It's so hazy, so less sharp, so not good optimized, together with this software that is not helping. Because yes, if you shoot RAW on other very high zoomed in lenses, like for example Samsung, or you take the Vivo, or you take the Xiaomi even, it also has this, but it has software that can render this out, that can correct these issues that the lens or the optics have. But it's not used on Sony, and I don't understand why, because they have the technology, because they use this technology on their DSLMs, sometimes even on their small point and shoots like ZV-1 and so on. They use this technology to correct stuff there in software, in post basically, but also live during recording. Why they cannot do this on the smartphone as well? The video performance on the front-facing camera is also okay-ish, I would say, but definitely not the best, especially also with HDR and so on. But it's doing a solid job. So like I said, the video performance is definitely not the thing that I dislike so much about the Xperia, except maybe for the zoom performance here. This is, by the way, the internal mic on this one here, all directions, so you see a little bit, or you hear a little bit of the birds chirping, and maybe you hear Timmy running around as well and doing his things here in the green grass. So what do you think about the front-facing video? One of the things that I really like on the Sony is the macro mode, because you can get away with lots of details and can capture very tiny things and see all the little bit of details. If you go to 100% view, however, you can see, yeah, it is not like so really defined. And this is now with the 120, I don't know, X that it shows, whatever it is, it just shows 120. You can see a bug there or a fly or something like this that I actually didn't see, and I just saw it when after I took the photo here. And yeah, but sometimes you can see also it's getting sometimes a little bit blurry, like this one here, for example. Should be like some blueberry fruit or something like this that opened up there in the middle, so probably rotting already inside. It's a bit shaky because when I like to take macro shots, the process of doing so is very finicky because we don't have any autofocus. So I have a manual slider that I have to slide around here with, and it has gladly focus speaking that helps me a bit. But yeah, this works for this subject that is like now very still, and I'm leaning towards the table. But if I'm holding it in my hands and have to do it, then it's getting a lot more shaking and harder. And if the subject or object is moving as well, especially with the flowers, it's almost impossible to get a nice shot. Yes, you can punch in even further, but it's like not making it easier for me, especially handheld, to get and grasp the shot. And most often I end up with a blurry shot like you see here. And the other issue is, like for indoor shots, it's almost unusable because you have to have a lot of light, otherwise you get a lot of grain here. And yeah, why is there no autofocus? Sony has so advanced with autofocus, why they cannot offer a macro autofocus that works? At daylight with enough light, the main camera sensor is performing very, very well. Also the 2x crop, which you see here, is working very well. You can see all the little details there. It is not too much over sharpened. There's a bit of sharpening added there, but it's doing a nice job here at outdoors. And also the ultra wide angle is doing quite a nice job if you see it here on first glance. Also with HDR, it's not too bad. Also the colors are not too punchy. If you zoom in, however, you can see that it's a bit of an older sensor. It's sharpening things up a little bit there, here and there, and it's not so detailed there. And you can see like a little bit of those issues there. But in general, I think it is still something where I would say I can live with this sensor in 2024. In 2025, I think they have to upgrade this sensor finally. And yeah, the zoom with 2x zoom is also working fine here in this kind of situations where you're shooting against the sun. You can see that the subject's like still, you can see a little bit of green and white there. But in general, it is not like the best in terms of HDR. It's not adding this super weird HDR-ish kind of look. The 2x is the one that surprised me the most because I think it's doing a very, very good job. It's like almost the level of an optical zoom here, even though it's just a crop in of the main sensor. The HDR performance on the main sensor is also very good, as you can see here, directly shooting against the sun, and we have this building nicely with all its colors there. It's a bit dark, yes, but it's like it doesn't look too over-processed, too HDR lookish like you usually get with this. And this one is working fine so far, as you see here. And the same I can almost say about the selfie cam. On first glance, it doesn't look bad, and everyone was happy when for the Mark IV they finally upgraded the sensor from 8 to 12 megapixels. But yeah, they failed to upgrade it for the Mark VI. I don't know why. I hope for the Mark VII they will do. If they don't, then forget about selfies. It is like I said, yeah, you can do the occasional selfies if you go in. It is not flagship worthy anymore. There are mid-range smartphones that do better selfies than this one here. And this is just like, if smartphones that half the price class can do better selfies here, the sharpness and detail level is just missing there. They add a little bit of the background blur there that you can see. It is artificial. It is not the bokeh mode. It's just like adding it like this, which looks nice. The HDR is okay here as well. This is why I'm smiling so much. But the detail level is just simply, it's just not really good. And this is something where I think for a flagship phone, for the prices over 1,300 euros, 1,400, 1,500 euros, what the Sony really wants, this is not it. You have to have a better selfie cam. In daylight, it is not performing that great anymore. F-stop number 3.5 is already a little bit outdated. Together with this very tiny sensor, even in this daylight situation, you can see it's not really sharp. And this is now the 7 times zoom. It's not very sharp. You have fringing. The little spikes, yeah, maybe you can see them. You can read everything, which is okay. But this is still, again, Vivo, Oppo, Xiaomi, Honor, Huawei, Samsung, even the iPhone are beating, everyone is beating this marvelous optical zoom from Sony. And not using optical zoom technology, but just their normal crop into sensor. And with at least 48 megapixel or 50 megapixel on the zoom lens, like Huawei is doing it, we could expect maybe a little bit more details here. But you can see that the optics are also not perfect. And the more you zoom in, the more it becomes apparent. Here you have still HDR. Here HDR is turned off, which is also like some software issue. And look, this looks a bit softer. This looks like a little bit more brighter, but still also a bit soft. This is now at 10 times zoom. And yeah, very soft. It's okay, you can see things, but the detail level is not there. And this is now the maximum, I think 20 times roughly zoom. And it is like, it was marvelous maybe when they introduced the Mark V with this kind of technology, and with the Mark VI, I think they reached a longer zoom range. But the sensor size is too small, the pixels are too less to get like enough details in there, and the low light performance is just too bad. And even in daylight, it is not performing in a way that I would say this is flagship worthy for 2025 or even for 2024, because there were much better shots done by almost all the other camera brands on the market. One thing I want to praise the zoom, however, and this is not only the zoom, this also applies to the ultra wide angle, the main sensor, as well as the autofocus for performance. This one has been shot, I think, with 7.1 times zoom. Just seeing the flowers, like the nice cherry blossoms there in the wind, waving back and forth. And I only took one shot and everything is in focus. Probably no other smartphone camera I have here would be able to do so, but the Sony is able to do so. It's in focus. The only issue that you have is, again, the quality of this. So it is in focus, but the quality, it's like lack of megapixels. The 12 megapixel would be fine if it would have a little bit more detail. It would be larger sensor, bigger megapixels. But here you can see it is already noise, and if I would have shot it with the P mode, Pro mode, then I would have seen also the raw file with lots of more noise going on there. There's already tons of noise in daylight, which is a little bit like, unexpected, I would say. A larger sensor here would help. To pad maybe with more megapixels for more details would also help. I know it is hard to achieve, especially when it comes to their focusing and the speed, but others can also perform a little bit better there. So Sony, this would be one thing where you have to improve. And then, this here is also one where I would say, why is Sony sticking to the optical zoom with this tiny sensor that is producing such photos here at 7.1 magnification that just don't look like their optical zoom. They look like a cheap, crappy digital zoom from a 3X. And there are like cameras out there nowadays, the Xiaomi, the Vivo, the Oppo, that can produce nicer shots just with a crop in of a larger, nicer, more megapixel sensor. So why is Sony sticking to the optical sensor with such a tiny sensor that is clearly inferior to all the other digital crop sensors that the other manufacturers are using? And it also struggles a little bit with motion blur. As you can see here, the text is blurry, even though I was holding it with two hands even, and we have 1/100th of a second of shutter speed. So even here we have problems. And talking about text, where Sony is praised by people that they don't have so much over-processing. They are heavily over-processing as well. As you can see here, as soon as they detect text in this zoom shot, they apply the sharpness filter to oblivion almost. As you can see here with the background blur that is like over-sharpened, looking almost like Samsung Galaxy vibes, Galaxy S23 Ultra vibes that I get here, with tons of noise that's introduced to the picture because of the over-sharpening. And you can see all this little white outlines around the text that makes it nice and readable, but it's just simply way too sharp. And when we go in here with the next shot, which is done in Pro mode with P mode, everything automatically just in P mode, first of all we get a not so bright shot, which is like the one that I would recommend, but I think I had in P mode minus 0.3 EV set, so this might be also one thing to fix, because Sony is like, sadly you cannot set the EV in an easy manner in auto mode, so you have to always have like a slider and guess what kind of EV it is. But here you can see the text looks a bit nicer. Still a lot of noise creeping in because the telezoom lens is just simply not very good indoors, barely usable indoors. You need tons of light indoors, otherwise you can just forget about the zoom. And yeah, bad processing, just compiled together with tiny sensors. It's just a bad outcome that will come out of it. And yeah, this is sad. The negative things, or let's go gradually towards those issues. If you are taking shots indoors, this is now turned done with an automatic shot on the Sony. You can see the ISO is 640 with the main camera sensor. You can see already it is struggling with the detail levels. And this is something where 1/1.3 inch size sensor actually shouldn't have much of issues there. But you can see it's quite soft and the detail of the fur is not really there. And he was standing still, he was not even moving there in this situation. And here I took the shot with manual mode, 2x crop, and this is why it's a bit dark. Went with the ISO a bit down, so to get away with the smudging there that comes from the noise reduction. And it is better, yes, but it's still lacking a little bit of detail and sharpness on his fur, on his nose, for example, on his hair. Everything looks a little bit, not so pleasant and sharp. The bokeh is nice. It is just like not a very strong bokeh, but it's nice so far. But where it's getting very weird, where it struggles a lot, is with indoor telezoom shots. This has been done now with the telezoom shot, and you can see how much noise there is. There's heavily noise reduction as well applied, but as you can see here from the raw shot, it is having tons of noise indoors, which is like something why there is so much noise, because there's so much color noise as well involved. It's amazing what they're doing with post-processing, because the raw file I cannot edit to look anywhere close to what Sony is producing here. Still, that shows that the sensor that they're using here is just too tiny for indoor usage, because it's just producing too much color noise. And even if they're rendering it out, there's still too much noise that is just simply distracting, and the lack of detail is very apparent. Here you have the shot done in automatic mode. The first one that I did was in P mode, or in the Pro photo mode, using the P mode. This one here is done in automatic mode. Yes, it's smoothing everything out, but look how much details are lost. There's almost nothing there in this elephant doll of my daughter, and also in my daughter's face and hair. This is just... It's not good for 2025, but it was also not good for 2024. It's just a major failure. This telezoom indoors is almost unusable. Almost, because you can, of course, use the flash. Then it looks like, the old 90s, where you have flash photography a lot. I don't know, I struggle. So the only reasonable thing to shoot indoors is with the main camera sensor. And you can crop 2 times in to get a little bit of zoom, but it's still like this portrait here of my dog done with manual settings. At first glance, if you see it on the phone, it looks nice, it's okay, but if you want to use it and put it on a large screen, it's a bit too dark, there's just lacks of details, noise again in there. It's just simply it looks like it's like from 5-6 years ago, a shot from 5-6 years ago, where this would be still passable. But indoors, the Sony is just falling apart as soon as there's not enough light. And when Sony is not doing great in computational photography, they are great and strong with hardware. So why not putting a 1-inch type sensor in their phone? Yes, it would make it a little bit bulkier. They don't have to make this round kind of interfaces. They can keep maybe their current lineup, but just add somewhere the 1-inch type sensor or a newer sensor. The Licia sensors, they should work a little bit better than this here for sure. This is not the performance that I expect for a camera smartphone centric flagship phone in 2025. As much as I like Sony's haptics for taking photos with the shutter button, two-stage shutter button, in general, I almost only use it for taking videos because this is the only thing where it is relatively good for nowadays. And if I take photos, then mainly with the main camera sensor. The telezoom is just simply, in the situations, it's so unreliable in this case where I think if it's a bit too dark, I get too much noise and it's not very usable. So I don't stick to it. It's just the results, they speak for themselves. I don't get good results with photos on the Sony camera. I can get good results if I put a little of effort in there. But most of the time, if you're traveling with your kids and you just want to take a shot and want it to come out good, and this is something that the Sony cannot do. You have to sit there, think about how you make your shot, and think about overcoming hardware limitations that are created by the tiny zoom sensor, for example, or you have to think about other things. It's not like the HDR that's shooting as a sun. It's getting. No. That's not the issue there with this. The main issue is the tiny sensor and how can I overcome the limitation of this tiny sensor. It's also very interesting for certain people, for sure, but it's not my cup of tea. I want something that I can also take as normal snapshot, just shoot and have a good picture out of it where I don't have to think too much. I can also, if I like to do it, I can also do it. But in other cameras, I can also do it. On other smartphone cameras, I can also go into pro mode, can change the settings there and tinker with this. It's an optional thing. Here, it is almost a necessity. And even if it is a necessity and you try to make the best out of it, it has lots of limitations and certain things that you're used to do with other smartphones, with the telezoom especially, you cannot do with this one here because it's just not good enough. But apart from the cameras, what about the rest of the phone? The screen is nice and bright outside. I don't have any issues, or even in daylight conditions. I can even show you have daylight, but it's nice and bright. I don't have any issues with this one. The refresh rate is nice, 120 Hertz. The battery is fantastic, 2 days of battery life without any issues. Headphone jack is fantastic, as well as the fast file transfer with USB 3.0, and you can also use it for display out. With some limitations, it doesn't like my Dell docking station for some reason. Other smartphones don't have an issue with this one. This doesn't give me an output. And I like the possibility to just remove the micro SD card. Micro SD card, another plus for the phone. You can put a micro SD card. You can even record videos on the micro SD card, which is quite nice. The user interface with the camera was a little bit controversial, let's say it like this. I'm almost pissed by Sony's piss poor implementation of the Pro video mode, and that it took almost half a year for them, for the next Android upgrade, to implement such a lousy feature here. Because yes, it has some basic features, but why not? It would be like 2 weeks after release, they could have put this together, because it's not much that they added there in the Pro Video feature. They even removed stuff that I really liked of the Pro Video mode on the previous, just like, for example, you can see probably here the audio meter. It was possible to set the gain, the microphone sensitivity for internal and external mics. Super, super useful, and I use it on my Xperia Pro I, on my Xperia 1 Mark V all the time to raise the gain of the audio volume. Not possible here anymore. What a shame that they're taking away such features. Great features like the possibility to have slow getting in focus shots, just like with the Cinema Pro app that was possible, which is super cinematic in a way, but super useful also for product shots. Gone, not in there. I was hoping for it. It's just not even the Vivo that I'm recording here has more manual Pro controls than this here. This looks like, yeah, almost like the one that we have on the Oppo phones. Like, it's not really a Pro mode, it's a movie mode where you can set certain settings. Like, I can set the EV, I can set the shutter speed. I have the possibility, such things, to set them up, and the aspect ratio eventually as well. It's so piss poor implementation of a video Pro mode. Yeah, there's focus peaking, that I'm almost speechless. Why did I wait half a year for this shit? For this crappy implementation of a Pro mode? I would have understood if they put all the stuff that was very good in the Pro video features, like in the Cinema Pro, maybe not so much, but in the Video Pro, and put it in here. But they didn't. They end up making like a Pro mode just like every other camera has, basically. And it's taking away features, it is not giving benefits, and on top of this you don't get, we have very high bitrate, I don't know, 180 or 200 megabits per second, I don't know what they have here, a higher bitrate than the normal video mode. It's looking a bit nicer for sure, the file sizes are huger. But seriously, Sony, where are all the features? Who on God's earth decided to take away key features for videographers, for example, like the microphone gain? Who on earth does the update policy at Sony that says you are not allowed to update within one Android version release the camera software, just bug fixes? And then this got like the Android 15 upgrade with this camera feature, and that's it. That's it. Nothing else will be, bug fixes will come. Nothing else will be added. I'm not even sure we get an Android 16 on this device. And probably it will never ever see any day of the light the features that the Xperia 1 Mark 7 will get, that I don't even know. Actually, they have to do a lot more, because like tons of features from the 1 Mark 5 are missing still on the 1 Mark 6. And I don't see anything coming on the 1 Mark 7. And I'm disappointed by this, to be completely honest. The only hope that I have for the 1 Mark 7 is that they will upgrade the sensors. Maybe they will choose a different camera array, because I want the 1-inch type sensor in here. I want the 1-inch type sensor in here. Either they create an ultra model where they put the 1-inch type sensor in there, or they put a 1 over 1.3 inch type sensor, but then for the ultra wide angle, for the main and for the telezoom, and they get rid of this crappy tiny sensor there for the telezoom. If they exchange it, like the rumors are saying, this tiny sensor to another tiny sensor, just with a newer XMOR RTS, I don't know, XYZ sensor there, that it should be better than the same technology that they use for the main sensor. It doesn't matter if the sensor size is so small. The benefits that you will gain is so small, and the other ones are like jumping hoops around Sony in terms of telezoom comparisons. It's getting towards a rant at the end, and I really don't want to. It's a good phone. I like to use the Sony phone. It's very minimalist. I would wish a few more features being implemented. Sony finally gets some kind of face recognition. It doesn't need to be face recognition for banking apps also on, but I like to unlock my thing also with the face, or have such features like I go here with my face and it sees me and it turns on the always on display. Would be nice, saves energy, and is still very convenient feature. Otherwise I have to just press the button again, or just have to use the always on display, and it will drain the battery a little bit faster than I would like to. Otherwise, other nitpicks there. Some applications, like a gallery application. Sony had the gallery applications relying on Google Photos. It's not ideal, let's say it like this. You have a video editing application, the Video Creator Pro, or Video Creator it's just called, not Pro even. Create a Pro version, please, out of the Video Creator. And allow us maybe in your own gallery application, or somehow hack it into the Google Photos, that we have the possibility to convert HDR videos automatically to SDR. Some convenience features. If you're working towards like more mainstream, add some convenience features, because now it's a bit of like stuck in something in between, where it is for casual users a bit too inconvenient to use, and for pro users it is just also losing its convenience, because also pro users want a little bit of convenience there. And with one hand, like adding LUTs for your log, not log, they don't even have log recording, they have just like HDR recording. Add log recording, maybe Sony. Maybe you have so many log files, you could just add it, put a little bit of LUTs there, allow in your video creator app to put the LUTs on top. There are so many things that you can do to improve this device, and it's not a huge kind of work that you have to do. Just upgrade the sensors and a little bit of the software. It doesn't need to be on day one, maybe, that the software with the LUT and everything is in there. But gradually give us those features, and don't let us wait for half a year or longer for an upgrade that is so minimal that, like I said, other manufacturers, Vivo, Huawei, Honor, they give us software update after software update that improves stuff with the camera as well. Here we have only bug fixes. We don't have any improvements that I see with the software here. Adding some new features in there or something like this. Autofocus for the telemacro or other assistant features. This is just... I'm disappointed by the Xperia 1 Mark 6, and I hope I won't be disappointed by the 1 Mark 7. So far I didn't hear much of the 1 Mark 7, so I cannot really judge it. But if it will be just a slightly hardware upgrade of this one here, same tiny sensors, just they change from the Xmore or something to Xmore T or Xmore X or Xmore S. I don't know how they call their sensors there nowadays. I won't be buying another Sony. It needs to be a substantial update, but I don't see it on the horizon yet. I'm waiting. I was just following Sony Xperia 1 Mark 7. Maybe I will be reporting about it, but I don't see myself spending money on it. I don't see it. That's it for this video. Your comments down below. Until the next time. Bye.